Welcome to the X Corner. I'm here to add a little mutation to the superhero crew again. I'll be covering the X books for the week of January 24th, 2018. This week we have 4 comics and the ever-present post-credit Wolverine scene. We got Legion number 1 of 5, Phoenix Resurrection: The Return of Jean Grey number 4 of 5, X-Men Blue number 20, X-Men Blue Annual number 1, and the post-credits Wolverine in Amazing Spider-Man 794. Spoilers, of course. We'll start with Legion number 1 of 5. The writer is Peter Milligan and the penciler is Wilfredo Torres. This comic opens with Legion, aka David Haller, Professor X's insane son, wandering through the US heading for New York to meet with a famous therapist. He is being chased by one of his personalities named Lord Trauma, who wants to take control. Meanwhile, celebrity therapist Dr. Hannah Jones thinks she's going insane at first because David psychically warns her that Lord Trauma is trying to get to her, and also Trauma tries to intimidate her into not seeing Legion. It ends with David saving Hannah after Trauma tries to eat her in a couch, and he asks for her help. Usually I'm not a fan of Peter Milligan's work. He tends to be pretty out there, like Alan Moore or Grant Morrison, but without the grounding that those writers seem to employ. I expected the worst from this comic, and nearly didn't pick it up, because I expected a crazy, incomprehensible mess. I was pleasantly surprised to find it reasonably insane, but understandable at least. Maybe Milligan is getting soft in his old age. Legion has an inner monologue, which is lucid, which helps explain the crazier things that happen to him, and it also helped the coherency of the story. There is a nice representation of his other personalities screaming at him to stop Lord Trauma, which I thought was well done. Lord Trauma himself at first seemed like just another personality, but when at one point David is brought into a hospital, and Trauma psychologically attacks the doctors and nurses trying to help David, you can see the creepiness of this antagonist. The art at first I did not like, but by the end I got used to it and didn't notice its flaws anymore. We'll see where this miniseries goes, but I'm much more interested in it now. 8 out of 10. Then we get Phoenix Resurrection: The Return of Jean Grey number 4. The writer is Matthew Rosenberg, and the penciler is Raymond Rosanis. In another barn burner, literally, of a Phoenix Resurrection issue, we start with Jean waking up at a burned out house, but not seeing anything that is wrong around her. The X-Men enter this giant egg that is Jean's world to find it's on fire, at least everywhere except where Jean is. It seems the Phoenix is grooming Jean to bond with it. Kitty realizes that the Phoenix brought them there to fight, so that Jean joins it, but instead she sends someone in just to talk to Jean. Young Cyclops volunteers, but Old Man Logan says that's not his Jean, and goes in for a final showdown. This series is so good. There's a page where the world is burning, everywhere except where Jean looks. Another full-page spread of the Phoenix perched on top of the diner where Jean is, as the X-Men approach, is also a standout. For a miniseries that could have been a cash grab, we're getting some deep X-Men love from Matthew Rosenberg. One more issue to see where this goes, and I can tell you that if it continues like this, we might have our first 10. This one is a 9 out of 10. Then we have X-Men Blue number 20, the writers Cullen Bunn, penciler R.B. Silva, and this one the young X-Men have confronted the future Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in the past, and with the help of all the other mutants they've met in their cross-time caper, they vanquished the bad guys back to the future. Professor X tells the young X-Men that he sent out a cry for help through time to get them to come rescue him, but they cannot stay in this past because they must eventually go back to the exact point they left to avoid any paradoxes. So the X-Men go back to the future and tell Magneto what happened, and he is unimpressed, but does ask about the future Brotherhood. Magneto then meets with the future Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and for a second he seems like he's going to recruit them. But then you realize he's there to stop them from trying to go back in time to screw it all up again. It is heavily implied that Mags is about to murder them all. The writing of the series is solid, even if I'm not crazy about where it went, and I did really enjoy the past Magneto being annoyed that the X-Men he thought he'd been fighting all along were imposters, since he felt they were finally learning to fight. Also the panel where Magneto and Professor X see the young X-Men back to the future, and Mags chides Professor X for not controlling his students. Also the end where Magneto threatens future Brotherhood is pretty epic. Maybe I just want another Magneto series. I've said it 1,000 times that the whole concept of this series seems not to be interesting. This issue wrapped it all up, quickly at least, and now on to bigger and venomier things. Rating 6 out of 10. Almost last, we have X-Men Blue Annual number 1. Writers Cullen Bunn, pencilers Edgar Saul Salazar Arteaga. That's a name. In a strange annual, which is actually just the next issue of X-Men Blue, we have Cyclops talking with his space pirate dad, Corsair, over Skype, when Corsair and the Starjammers are attacked. Cyclops sees one of the attackers, and it's a symbiote, like Venom. The young X-Men go to find Venom to get some intel on the symbiotes, but their meeting goes awry and they end up fighting Venom. Luckily for them, the symbiote knocks his host body, Eddie Brock, out because he wants to help the kids with these other symbiotes. Venom wakes up to find he's been kidnapped by the young X-Men and brought off to an alien planet, where Corsair is said to go before he was cut off. The kids and the reluctant Venom end up at a bar looking for these symbiotes, but the symbiotes find them first. The next issue of X-Men Blue looks like we'll have a great classic bar fight. So these young X-Men just got done with their cross-time caper, and now we're off into space. Cullen Bunn definitely doesn't shy away from breaking convention in this series, that's for sure. I'm not a fan of Venom, but this crossover could be fun. Jean saying, "To me, my X-Men, like Professor X used to do," was nice. Also, Venom threatening to eat Hank's brain, only for the symbiote to try to implore Eddie to tell them that they don't do that anymore, was very funny. Why this was an annual confounds me. This was issue 21 by all accounts, and I feel sorry for anyone collecting the series at a later date. Also, it does lead into yet another X-Men crossover with a random book, much like the Weapon X Hulk one last year, and that annoys me. Overall, though, I'm much more interested to see where the storyline goes. Also, the news that an all-new, all-different X-Men Blue team starting soon got me wondering about this series, but we'll see how it pans out. Rating 7 out of 10. In the end, we have yet another post-credit scene with Wolverine in Amazing Spider-Man 794. The writers are Dan Slott and Christos Gage, and the pencilers Linneo Francis Yu. So here we are again, with Wolverine popping up in yet another post-credit scene. I looked it up, and there are 6 more of these, before Wolverine gets his own miniseries in April, so I guess I'll have to keep finding them. This one has Wolverine showing up to the aftermath of the fight with Spider-Man and some Dr. Fate-looking motherfucker in London, England. Spider-Man punched the villain out of the face of Big Ben, smashing it. And this is a crowd scene sometime later with people remarking on the destruction. Wolverine is looking up, and some very friendly British gentleman asks if he'd like to get through, and Wolverine answers very cryptically that it ain't time yet. Even though this is still Linneo Francis Yu drawing this, it is markedly much more poorly drawn. I guess Linneo took all the allotted time rendering a very accurate Big Ben, rather than trying to get Logan's hat to look even remotely like a cowboy hat. So there you have it! Yet another X-Corner draws to a close. This week was Young X-Men heavy, but I made it through. Next week is a big one. We have the finale of Phoenix Resurrection. Will we get a resurrection? Or have Marvel lied to us once again? Come back next week to find out.